The Page Inspector is a browser window inside Visual Studio that renders web pages and provides developer tools to help debug markup and style sheet problems. For this demonstration, I'm using the project Debug with Page Inspector. I will start by showing you the application in IE. To do that, I'll go to this dropdown and choose Internet Explorer from this list. And then I'll press F5 to run the application. This is my website. The first page has some pictures and some text. We're going to spend our time in this second tab, this Debug tab. In this page, I have a button that runs some server-side code that changes this label. I have a list of tours that has some issues. The colors are wrong on this. I don't like the orange background. And something is wrong with this tour. It doesn't look like the rest of the tours. And when you click on this Debug JavaScript button, I'm running some client-side JavaScript to add an image to the DOM. The trouble comes when I click on the button a second time and I see that the image doesn't look the right size. It's too wide. We're going to use the Page Inspector to solve these problems. I'll close the browser and return back to Visual Studio. I'll switch in this drop-down to the Page Inspector and then press F5 to run the application again. This is the Page Inspector. It consists of a top window which contains the browser, Internet Explorer, and the bottom two panes which show the HTML and other items. I'll click on the HTML tab. The HTML tab in Page Inspector shows the HTML as it is rendered by the browser. If you click on the Files tab, you can see the files that are used to generate this page. I can see that site.master and default.aspx are used to build this page. Now I'm going to come up to this page. It is live, and click on this debug link and look at this page that has the trouble. Down here I can see that this page is built from site.master and debug page.aspx. If I click on site.master, Visual Studio loads my source code into this tab over here. If I click on debug page.aspx, Visual Studio loads that page into my code editor. And it synchronizes the items. If I select the label here, you'll see that it selects it over in the debug page.aspx source code. I'll switch back to the HTML view. Now I can use this to drill into the elements. You can see right now that because I have the label selected here, it's attempting to find the label in the HTML section. Here it is. This is the rendered HTML, remember? So the ID of this is different than what I have over here. Over here I have ASP:label, and the ID is label1. That, of course, gets turned into a span tag in the HTML world, and the ID is now main content placeholder _ label1. That is the ASP.NET naming containers at work. Over here in this area, I can see there's a Styles tab. That is showing me the styles that make up this span tag. I'm going to show you a tool that makes it even easier to drill in and find this information. That's this Inspect button. I'm going to click on the Inspect button and then click on the label. Now I can come over here and look at the Trace Styles. The Trace Styles lets me look at the style sheets that contain the actual code that's generating this style. I will use the list items to demonstrate. I'll click on Inspect, and then I'll click on Bus Tours. Make this a little bit taller so we can see. These are all the styles that are applied. I can see the bottom border is orange. And when I open this up and click on this tour list space LI, that takes me over to the actual CSS that is generating that style. When I move to this area, the color value, and click on this area, it will take me over to the style.css file. This is where the body color is being defined. This is very handy. I can see the source as I click on the styles. Now let's fix this. What's the problem with balloon tours? Oh, I see. I'm missing an LI tag on the beginning and ending of the balloon tours, so it's not part of the list. I'll click on Inspect. Click here. That loads my debug page.aspx over here. And I can come over here to my source code and modify my HTML and wrap this balloon tours in an LI tag. The Page Inspector detects that I've made a change in my source code and prompts me over here. Some files that are used by this page have unsaved changes. Click here to save all files and refresh the browser. Let me try this. I'll click. What just happened? My source code was saved. It recompiled my application, reloaded my page in the page inspector. Very convenient. Next, I'll turn to the problem that I have with this JavaScript. I'll click on this button. Let's make some more room so it's a little bit easier to see before I click on the button. And there's my image. Now that image is somewhere inside this HTML. I'll use the inspect tool to find it in just a second. Let me add the image that looks wrong. I'll click a second time, and then I'll click on inspect and click on this first item or the second item. Notice as I hover over them, it puts an orange border. That's to signify that this is being rendered by JavaScript. It also says JS IMG and JS IMG. Those are clues that these are created by code. Also, if you look over on my source code page on line 13, it says div element.appendchild.img. That's the line of code that's actually generating this image. Now there's more. If I click, you'll see down here that the call stack tab also has an orange border. That's to signify that there's some information in there. What this shows me is the JavaScript areas that are rendering this. There's an on click. When I click on this, you can see it over here. It's in this load elements on this input tag. I'll make this a little bit wider to see this. And when I click on load elements, it takes me up to the function that's actually being called by that button. And you can still see the highlight very dimly. You can see the highlight on line 13 saying this is the line of code that's generating that image. Choose inspect, click on this again. So what's actually wrong with this? The width is not set to 90. That's the value that I want. Now there's a couple of ways I can fix this. For temporary testing, I can type a new value here in the HTML tab. Type in a new value here and press enter. And then in the page inspector, I can see what it looks like. Once I'm satisfied that that's the problem, then I can come over here and modify my source code. IMG. Once again, page inspector tells me I have some unsaved changes. I'll click on that header and it refreshes the page. And now when I press the button, the images are perfectly sized. That's great. I'll summarize what we've seen. The Visual Studio Page Inspector tool is an awesome productivity enhancement feature for web developers. It brings the entire debug experience inside Visual Studio to make it easier to find and troubleshoot HTML and CSS errors.